Hey guys, welcome back to Life of Bliss. I've got a pretty cool video for you today on the 825 speakers from Stereo Integrity that Nick just developed and released earlier this year. Now, if you've been around my channel for any length of time, you'll know that I've had Stereo Integrity products in my theater since the start. I started out with 3 of the HS24 subwoofers, which are 24-inch monsters that Stereo Integrity makes. More recently, I upgraded from the paper drivers up to the carbon fiber drivers that they have, and I now have a total of 4 HS24s in my home theater. Now that said, I really don't consider myself a fanboy or play favorites. It's getting a little hot in here. Hold on just a second, guys. There we go. It's better. These lights are getting a little bright. 1 minute here. I'll be ready in just a second. Alright, so obviously you guys know I love Stereo Integrity. I've loved having these drivers in my theater for the past several years, so figured I'd have a little bit of fun with the merch that I had. But today's focus is on the 825 towers that Nick just released recently. Now, Nick had one of his initial showings of these towers at M-Wave 2024 earlier this summer, and I've had the privilege of having them in my room for the past few months. Now, in this video, I'm going to be going over the specs and sharing some really cool pictures of the build process of these speakers. I've got some in-room measurements that I've taken, and I'm also going to be sharing some experiences that I've had and that others have had at M-Wave 2024, as well as here in my home. Before I get too far into the video, I did want to say I really think that Stereo Integrity did an incredible job designing and executing the speaker. But the main thing and why people are buying speakers is obviously how it sounds. In my opinion, these speakers have an incredibly full and rich sound, especially down deep in the mid-bass and bass regions, and they are very linear in-room, as you'll be seeing here in just a moment. But I think that goes down to starting with a good speaker. Now, the box design is great, but I think the speakers that Nick has put out are, like I said, extremely linear. That woofer is a very high excursion 8-inch woofer, so you're able to dig down into those lower octaves and give a more fuller sound without a subwoofer. So I'm going to go over some box specs and the build process, and then we will get on to the room measurements and how everything has sounded. So the 825 towers are composed of 2 speakers that Nick offers on his website. The tweeter is the M25 Mark II, and the 8-inch driver is the TM8. These towers stand at 42 inches tall, 10 inches wide, and about 15 3/4 inches deep. These 4-ohm speakers are rated at 200 watts per tower, and there is an internal crossover with a selectable attenuation for the tweeter by removing the port, and those attenuations are set at 0, -3, and -6. The cabinet is tuned to 29 Hz, and the woofer is crossed over at 3200 Hz at a 12 dB per octave slope. And MSRP for the 825s is $3,000 per pair of speakers shipped from Stereo Integrity's website. I'll leave links down below. Now, getting into the part that I'm really excited about, the design and construction of the boxes. Now, these were designed and built entirely here in the US by Charles Keene in Florida. Now, a lot of you probably know Charles from either Facebook groups or AVS forum and seen a lot of his enclosures that he has built and posted pictures of. Now, as someone who loves to build and finish their own speaker boxes, and I've also done a lot of body work and paint work in the past, I am absolutely amazed by how well Charles can put these enclosures together, and the 825s are no exception. For all of his cuts, Charles uses a CNC router that gets everything exactly the size that it needs to be for assembly. Instead of just butting up MDF inside of the enclosure for bracing, he uses dado joints to make sure that there is a stronger hold and a better brace. Just look at the detail on these braces. This is something I could never do because I don't have a CNC machine, but the Stereo Integrity logo is in the bracing inside of the box. I mean, the attention to detail is incredible with these. He's also done something similar on the backside of the enclosure where he puts the 825 with the Stereo Integrity logo, which in the current models is filled with epoxy as well. These are just cut out on these current models that I have, but the newer versions are filled with epoxy. Just an absolutely incredible design that you wouldn't be able to do unless you had the proper tools. Now, the box itself is made out of 3/4 inch MDF, has either oak or cherry wood veneer on top, and is finished with a polyurethane top coat. But just looking through these assembly photos, it's very clear to see that Charles takes his time with his designs, takes a lot of care into making sure things are done correctly and not taking any shortcuts. Now the fit and finish on these speakers is absolutely incredible, but I think one of the greatest things about these speakers is you've got a small business in North Carolina manufacturing the speakers. You've got an individual, a small business in Florida building the enclosures and assembling everything and getting this finished product, and then it's being shipped out to you guys. It's not being manufactured and painted and assembled in China and then shipped over here for dispersion. It's being made here in the US by people in our home theater community and in our speaker community. And to me, that's something kind of special on its own besides just the speaker itself. You've got people here in the US actually putting everything together and making a finished product, which unfortunately you don't see too much anymore. So next let's talk about the sound and look over some of these graphs and measurements that I took in my room, and holy cow, these things dig deep. I mean, if you're really looking for a stereo set that you don't need a subwoofer for, these are it. Now, as I mentioned, the box is tuned to 29 Hertz, and these speakers absolutely dig down all the way to 29 Hertz in room and have incredible pressure for their size. And that's one of the things I think people were shocked by at M-Wave 2024. Now at M-Wave 2024, Nick brought 8 of his HS24 subwoofers, and we paired those with the 1299 towers out of my theater. But there were also several times throughout the event that we shut all of the subwoofers off and only played the 829 tower speakers. It was really interesting to see people's reactions with that, because a lot of the time, you know, we weren't playing music as loud as we were with the 1299 towers. It was toned down a little bit with the 825 towers from Stereo Integrity, but it was almost like people would sit there and listen for a little bit and they were like, so how many subwoofers are playing? Is it just the 2 up front or 2 in the rear or what is it? And we had to like show them the amplifiers were off, the subwoofers weren't playing, and it was just the tower speakers. They had so much bass and pressurization in the room for the volume that we were playing that people seriously thought that there were subwoofers playing in the room as well. Now that's not to say that these are going to absolutely blow your socks off and drive you out of the room like a couple of good 15s or 18s will. That's just not the case with these. But if you are looking for a set of tower speakers that have more than enough bass at moderate to loud listening levels, these are it. Now once I got these speakers here at home and set up down in my room, the same was true for here at home. Incredible sound, incredible low-end excursion. My wife honestly could not believe that there was no subwoofers on when we played a few Hans Zimmer songs, which is probably my absolute favorite concert disc, Hans Zimmer Live in Prague. If you don't have it, go buy it right now. But she was just shocked that there was no subwoofers playing whenever we were playing a few songs off of there. So she was extremely impressed with them. I've been extremely impressed with them. Honestly, I have not turned on my 24s, my subwoofers down here since I've had these towers in, just because it's been a nice difference in sound without the extreme loud bass. But again, it's not like I feel like I'm missing too much, because these are just excellent speakers that dig down really deep. Now that being said, I really am looking forward to getting these 24s fired up again, so don't get me wrong, I still love my bass. Alright, so looking at a few measurements here in REW in my room, this is the main listening position with both speakers playing, and this is at a 1 to 6 smoothing, and as you can see, things are pretty linear. It starts to dip off about 17,000 Hertz, which is due partly to the attenuation switch for the tweeter, but coming down here to 200 Hertz and below, you'll see it gets a little wonky there under 80 Hertz, a little bit of a dip at 140, but that'll be corrected with some room correction here in the second graph. But you can see we're getting a solid response all the way down to 30 Hertz and below. By the way, don't pay attention to the SPL meter on the side. My my dB switches on my UMIC 1 were different from what my calibration file was, so this is probably closer to 80 decibels than it is to 120 decibels, so just disregard that. Now, after running Dirac Live through the Emotiva RMC1L, you can see things flatten out even more, and we have a super flat response all the way up to almost 18,000 Hertz. And again, in Dirac, I had it drop off once it reached 18,000, so that is dropping off there. We're going to zoom into the 10 to 200 hertz range, and as you can see, much flatter response. And I did throw about a 5 dB curve towards the bottom end to bring that bass up just a little, so that's why you're seeing a little higher numbers there, under about 140 hertz or so. But as you can see, this is going all the way down to the port tuning at 29 hertz before it drops off, which the sound in room is incredible. You know, graphs don't tell you the whole story. They give you a good idea of what things are going to look like, what they're going to sound like, the actual response of the speakers. But again, all the way down to 30 hertz, just under 30 hertz before they drop off. Incredible design, incredible speaker, high excursion speaker to be able to do that sort of thing, and it sounds great doing it. It's just got a very warm sound. It's very linear through the mid-range and up top, and then it's got a warm sound down low. Just a speaker that you don't have to pair a subwoofer with to have a great overall sound. Now I want to share just a few songs that I like to listen to whenever I'm demoing speakers, and for male vocals, for bass for these speakers, I think one song that really shines is The Sound of Silence by Jeff Castellucci. He has an incredibly low voice, and he has just great male vocals to test out on a speaker. And there's a super low 30 to 40-ish hertz range note that plays in that song that just sounds absolutely incredible on here, on the 825. So give that one a listen on your setup. Tell me what you think. Another great song that I love listening to for female vocals is Oceans Where Feet May Fail by BYU Noteworthy. Now this is pretty much an all-female a cappella song that really just, it's beautiful in my opinion, but just really lets the female vocals shine on any speaker system. So definitely give that a listen. Now last, this is kind of an odd one, but I heard this mix at M-Wave earlier this year on the RTJ tower speakers that were there. Came home, played them on the 825s. It has the widest sound stage I have ever heard in any song, and that is Vogue by Madonna off the Immaculate Collection disc. Absolutely incredible. It sounds like the speakers are almost 90 degrees to the side of you. These speakers let that song shine as well. It's crazy that I'm down here listening to Madonna. My wife thinks I'm a little weird, to be quite honest, whenever she walks in and I'm jamming out to Madonna, but it's worth it. Give it a shot. So guys, to wrap up, I truly think that these speakers are hitting out of their weight class at the price point that they're at and the sound that they're putting out. I truly think Nick put together an incredible package, and that all starts with great speaker design. Now I know I'm probably known as the stereo integrity guy here on YouTube because I've done several videos with their products over the years. I've had their products in my system for at least 5 or 6 years, like I've mentioned. So that being said, I'm not getting paid to do this video. These are not my speakers to keep. These are Nick's personal towers that are going to be shipped back to him here probably next week, unfortunately. And I just wanted to make a video showcasing this product because I truly feel it hits above its weight class. So as I mentioned, if you guys are interested in the 825 towers from Stereo Integrity, I will leave a link down below to Stereo Integrity's website. Thank you to Nick and the Stereo Integrity crew for letting me borrow these speakers for a few months after the show, and I truly do hope that you guys can get out and listen to a pair of these at some point in the near future. I really appreciate you guys watching Life of Bliss, and I will see you soon.